Tom Nichols at the Nostalgia USA Film Festival in Little Rock, visiting with one of my favorite people, Gail Davis. Gail, it's a pleasure to finally do this in person.
Hi, Tom. It's wonderful to be here in Little Rock, and it's so nice to see you. So thrilled to be here for the festival and to be back home again.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming over from Hot Springs.
And the festival runs through Saturday here at the Camelot Hotel. It's open to the public. We invite everybody to come by.
That's right. So we're going to be here for 3 days. There'll be Rand Brooks and Buck Taylor and, oh my goodness. Well,
Dan Seymour.
Yes.
Kathleen Freeman.
Right. Thank you for helping me on this. I can't remember all the names, but there's a lot of people that, you'll have so much fun meeting and being around and talking over old times and old features and films that you have seen before and that you will enjoy seeing again because they're showing a lot of them here at the hotel. I don't know all the times and everything on them, but I'm sure that you could get a list of them from the hotel as to the different times that they're going to be showing and might be the films that you wanted to see over again. So come on down and join us.
And you got here yesterday and you had a press conference and they had a lot, it was like This Is Your Life, I understand. They brought out people like Louise Lucan that you hadn't seen in a while.
Oh, honey, that was the greatest thrill of my life. I mean, really and truly, to see this gal that, well, we really and truly, what you might say, started out together with Coleman Dairy. Well, she had been working for Coleman Dairy, but I mean, as far as Annie was concerned, the Coleman Dairy people were the first people to sponsor the Annie Oakley Show. Now, Boots Coleman, whom I love, and I'm sure everybody in Arkansas still does and remembers he and Tommy, his fantastic, beautiful wife. When Boots heard that we were doing the Annie Oakley Show, he said, can we please sponsor it first in Little Rock? And I said, you bet. So I went to Mr. Autry and all the big wigs, and I said, hey, this is where I want to open the show. So they were the very first sponsors of Annie, and they stayed with us all 7 years. And that's the Coleman Pure Milk that I drink when I'm back home in Little Rock.
That's what you used to say. I sure do, because I used to watch them.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that, Tom.
Now, we've talked about this before. You grew up in Little Rock, spent some time in McGee. Your dad was a doctor. Then you came back to Little Rock. You went to school here. What was it like being a teenager in this area in the 1940s?
Oh, it was heaven. I mean, it was just, well, really and truly, it was such a pleasure and so much fun in the things that we did. We all went to dances on the weekend. They had them on Friday nights, and then we'd go to the movies or something like that on Saturday. And it was just a wonderful family thing. The parents knew where we were, and they weren't worried about us. And we were all in at decent hours, and I guess we were pretty good kids. I mean, I guess some of us, there are a few that stepped out of line now and then. There's a little devil in all of us as far as that's concerned.
Did your parents have strict rules when you were a teenager?
Oh, very definitely.
What were some of the rules?
Well, it would all depend the night of the week. I had to be in at certain hours. And school nights, I couldn't go out unless it was, I had to be in by 7:30 or something like that. And it wasn't for a date. If we had something that some of the kids were going to get together and do, it would be fine. But I had to be in at a certain time. And the same way on Friday nights and Saturday nights, there were certain curfew hours on that order. And then Sunday nights I had to be in early because Monday was a school day. So they weren't strict, I don't think, really, Tom. I think they were very reasonable. And most of the other kids that I ran around with, their parents had the same, rules on this order. And there were a couple of times, that things happen. The old routine of the flat tire came up one night, and but it was true. I swear it was. And my mother and dad had a fit because I was not home. It was like 3 o'clock by the time we got in. And
no wonder they had a fit.
Well, this poor little guy that I was with, we were both very upset because there was no place to get a phone call. And so when we finally got home, my mother was at the front door, my dad was at the front door, and this little guy that I was with was he wasn't as tall as I am. I'm 5'2". I think he was about 5 feet tall, and he was shaking in his boots by the time he got me to the front door. And my daddy answered, and he said, "You can come to the house now, Beijing." I said, "Yes, Daddy." And so this kid went home, and he sent my mother flowers the next day and a box of candy, and he called my father and apologized and all this sort of thing. And it was just one of those things, and it truly was true. And Daddy finally said, okay, He says, I knew that, he said, we're just so worried that, something might have happened to you and we couldn't find you. So
understandable, sure.
Well, I've raised my daughter, and I went through this. And I would see her come home late one night. I would panic.
Now, you went to college originally in Pennsylvania, didn't you?
That's where I started, yeah. And then I went from there to the University of Texas.
And majored in drama?
Right. Yes, I did. And then from there, I came to California. I went to California. I'm in Arkansas.
Gene
right?
Autry came through when you were in Texas to do a show of some kind?
And then he said when I came to California to be sure and call him at the studio, and he gave me his number. And then I did when I got to California.
Did he remember you?
Yes, he did. Very strange. Well, I gave him a rundown that he couldn't forget, you know, talking about the camp shows and things that he did around this area because being in the Army and all. And so.
But initially, you didn't go to work for Gene. You went to work for MGM, didn't you?
Right, I started out under contract to MGM for 3 months, and then they sold my contract to RKO. Then I did a picture with Roy Rogers. And then Gene's producer saw the picture, and he said, and Gene says, wait a minute. He says, that's a little girl I saw in Arkansas. And Mandy says, well, why did you let Roy get hold of her? So he says, get hold of this girl and bring her in. So I went in, and then I made my first picture with Gene called Cowtown.
Right at the beginning with MGM when you went under contract, what are some of the things they did to contract players in those days? Send you to school? And
They did everything under the sun. You had drama lessons, you had vocal lessons, you had ballet lessons, you had dancing lessons, you had etiquette lessons.
it was like going to school, wasn't it?
Oh, completely. I mean, they had a school on the lot where you were taught how to speak. I mean, the first thing they did was try and get rid of my Arkansas accent. And then they put me in a picture called Romance of Rosie Ridge, which was made in Missouri. Now, I want to ask you. And then the even funnier thing, so they thought, they said, okay, we think we got your accent cleared. Then they put me in this picture, and then I didn't say a word in the whole picture. And I was in, you know, I worked on it for like 6 weeks. I was Guy Kibbe's daughter in it. I guess I was very shy. I don't know, Tom.
Must have been.
I didn't say a thing in that whole thing. And I'd worked all this time to get rid of my Arky accent. And then I went back. I said, to heck with y'all. So I'd call Mubby on the phone and then get my accent back. So I don't think it's ever left me. At least I hope not. I kind of like it myself.
You did the movie with Roy, The Far Frontier, I think, was
Right,
that
that
feature?
was it, yeah.
You did a couple of other things at Republic.
Yeah, I did.
2 Rocky Lanes.
Right, and Monty Hale. Then I did some with Jimmy Wakely, who at that time was, I guess, at Monogram. Then I did Tim Holt, and then I did a picture with John Wayne. And then, well, of course, going on down the line, I did a picture with Andy Griffith. That was after, well, that was right after Annie finished. I guess that was the last show that I made for television, as far as that goes.
Rocky Lane, what was he like on the set?
He was a human dynamo. He was a terrific guy, very nice, really and truly, but hyperactive and loved to. Everything was macho for him, and he was really a macho guy, you know. And it was, I mean, it was very simple as far as I was concerned.
A perfectionist?
Yes, very definitely. Yeah. And everything had to be just right. But he was very good to me, so I had no complaints with this man whatsoever. I know some of the wranglers and some of the guys would get a little upset with him sometimes because he was so, as you say, a perfectionist on some of the things that he wanted to do. But at the same time, his shows came out well.
Well, that's it. He's gotten a lot of bad press over the years about how hard he was to work with, but yet, when you realize that his pictures were shot on the lowest budget available at Republic, and you look at them today, they hold up quite well.
They do. They really and truly do.
Something had to be going right.
Well, I mean, and this was his show, you know.
And
so
he cared about it.
Yeah, right. And that, I think he should have. And I think it was right for him to stand up for him on that order. As I say, we had no problems. I liked him. I really and truly did.
Now, Gene signed you to a contract, didn't he?
Not as far as the features were concerned.
You didn't. You were freelancing at that time.
Yeah, and so in the interim, I would do things like, well, there were a lot of television shows going on at that time.
You did the Johnny Mike Brown features, too.
Right, oh, and there's...
What was your first impression of Johnny Mike Brown the first day you walked on the set?
Oh, I loved him. I just adored this man. He was a perfect gentleman, a perfect Southern gentleman, I might add. And just, he was so gracious and so nice to work with. It was just, you know, he never got mad. I never saw him upset. Everybody in the crew loved him. He was just, I can't imagine a man this nice and to still be a macho guy, because the crew, all the guys would do.
And it was all genuine, wasn't it?
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. And he had 2 big dogs that he kept with him at all times, and he loved all animals, and he loved all people, and the kids adored him. I thought this man was sensational. But he was married. That was the only problem.
I think he married his childhood sweetheart.
He did, yes. And she was charming, just adorable, you know, and they were very cute together. So,
And he had a large family, too.
yes, I was so happy for him. But it's just so nice to meet somebody that's that real, you know. Tom, he's just
Now,
Absolutely.
contrast his fairly easygoing personality, relaxed Southern type of personality to Gene Autry's.
Well, now, Gene, on the other hand, is also a gentleman, and I don't know. Gene was more macho than Johnny Mac. Johnny would come over on the screen as a macho guy, but being a football player and,
Sure.
you know, all this sort of thing, too, that's one thing. But Johnny was softer than Gene, you might say, in some respects. And Gene was macho on the set and off the set. But at the same time, he was a very gentle, you know, wonderful man. And he also loved animals, the same as Johnny Mac. And so they were, as a matter of fact, thinking about it, I never tried to compare them before. But thinking about it, they're pretty close on that order because he was a very polite man, which he still is today, and charming, and he has charmed my mother over the years, for crying out loud. She will not go to California unless she can have lunch with Gene. And, you know, he's a pretty busy guy. And so I say, Mub, you know, I'll try it, but every time she comes to California, I'll call and I'll leave word at the office that Mubby's in town. And Gene will call the house and say, you know, let's go to brunch or let's go to lunch, whatever. And she gets to see him. I can't get through to him, but she can. But she was charmed absolutely by him. So I have to say that, well, he was an absolutely super person to work with and for. You know, he was a great boss as far as, you know, producing the Annie Oakley shows.
Now, you'd done all of these features with him, and when he came up with the idea, of course, he was one of the first to go into television in 1950 with his Flying A Productions.
Right.
And he produced The Range Rider, and then he came up with the idea for Annie Oakley.
Right.
And he sends out a casting call, and you weren't included.
No. No, they felt that I had done so many features with Mr. Autry that they wanted a new face as far as the screen was concerned. And yet at the same time, they wanted somebody that could ride a horse and shoot a gun and that looked about 18, somewhere in that neighborhood, and could act. So they ran a contest throughout the United States. And I kept knocking on the door and saying, you know, let me just test for it. And they said, no, Gail, you know, not right now. Let's
Now,
run.
who was saying no to you?
Well, the producers.
Mandy Schaefer?
Yes, I forgot that you knew him, Tom, and Mandy Schaefer and Mitch Hamelberg. They were the two main producers, and Mr. Autry himself, of course. And even Gene was saying at the time that, he said, well, he said, if we can find somebody that can meet these requirements, or qualifications, or whatever you want to call it, then fine, you know. And I said, but, I mean, I said, I at least need to get a chance. So finally I got mad and I went in the studio one day and I put on a pair of blue jeans and a gingham shirt and washed my face and just put freckles on my nose and put my hair in pigtails, and I walked in and I said, I want a test for Annie. Well, Mandy, God love him, finally said, I give up. And he said, you know, you were so persistent on this, and I guess, you know, the only thing we can do is at least give you a test. So he said, let's do it. Well, I did the test and I guess I won, because here I am.
What was involved in the test?
Well, it was like a scene out of one of the shows. I can't even tell you which show it was now, I'm sorry to say. It was a script that we did later, you know, through the series, and so they gave me a particular scene in that, and it was, I think I had to show quite a bit of emotion, and
You've always been good at that.
thanks, Tom. I don't know about that.
You have a certain way with the line. You always can convey emotion.
Well,
quite
that's nice for you to say that. I appreciate it. I have a great deal of feeling inside of me that when I do something on the show on this order, that I like to get into the part, and it's like me speaking it, you know.
In fact, I want to tell you a brief story about that. One of my friends is Myron Healy, the great bad man,
I love him.
and he loves you too. And he was telling me about when you did your first Jimmy Wakely movie.
Yeah.
Myron, in addition to being the villain, was the dialogue director. And I don't know if you remember this or not. You hadn't been in Hollywood that long.
No.
And he was running over the scene with you, and it was a scene where I think Tom London was your father and something had happened to him and you were required to cry. And in this run-through with Myron, you just turned on the tears. And he was amazed. He told you, you know, saved some of that for the camera. He was afraid that you couldn't do it for the camera. You did it so well, but you did it for the camera. That impressed him. He still talks about that.
Well, it's a strange thing. When I get into a script and I can read things, and then when I really feel it, the tears just come out. Mm-hmm. I can see a television show or a movie or anything on this order, and I can look at a little puppy, mm-hmm. and tears will come out of my eyes. It just, mm-hmm. I guess it's just an emotion that I have that when I feel that good mm-hmm. about something, I cry. Now, if I'm mad, I cry. And so it really, truly doesn't make any difference. I cry a lot, Tom. What can I tell you? But then it's over with, and it's fine.
But to win the role of Annie Oakley, you showed true grit. Being a native Arkansasier.
Oh, you better believe it.
Not one of these wimpy Arkansans, as they say, but a native Arkansasier.
Oh, you're terrific, Tom. Thank you very much. That's super to hear.
Where were a lot of the Oakleys filmed? You went on location occasionally, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, we went on location a lot of times. We went up to Apple Valley, mm-hmm. which I know you're familiar with, and then we went up to a place that we call Pioneer Town, mm-hmm. which is right up above Palm Springs. It's about 5,000 feet straight up, I guess. Mm-hmm. And they go up there because there are no telephone poles, mm-hmm. And no wires or anything on this order that will get involved with the camera. Mm-hmm. And then also they have what they call Panic Peak up there. That's the last place the sun goes down. Mm-hmm. They get in the cars and race to the top of this hill, mm-hmm. Like 5:30 at night. That's mm-hmm. the last place that the sun hits. Mm-hmm. And you're all worn out. You're riding your horse. The other guys have got mm-hmm. the camera cart and everything to get up there to get the last shot. Mm-hmm. Well, it was fabulous, for shooting. 120 degrees in the shade and no shade. Mm-hmm. You're out there in the middle of this desert mm-hmm. with your boots on and your gabardine outfits and your makeup and all this, and eating salt pills, like mad,
mm-hmm.
mad. But it was fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody was in the same boat, so the crew and everyone took it, with a smile. Mm-hmm. You'd have lunch and you'd sit there with sand in it. Mm-hmm. Terrific, Mm-hmm. I mean, what a... This is supposed to be a fun business, right? I swear. So everybody says, oh, it's so glamorous. I said, right.
Sure.
Come with me on location one day. I'll show you what it's like. But as I say, everybody was in the same boat, so everybody took it and enjoyed it. And
when you won the role, you really got into it, which is to your credit, because one of the first things you did was buy your own horse.
Right.
In fact, you told me you had 3 targets, mm-hmm. The Palomino quarter horses.
Right.
How did you select the first one?
Well, I had a lot of help. Gene was a big help as far as mm-hmm. this was concerned. And his trainer, who trained, Champ, as mm-hmm. far as that goes. So they really and truly brought in, several of them for me to try out. Mm-hmm. And see how we got along. Mm-hmm. So we took them out to Gene's ranch, of course, and I would take them in the arena and work them out and, mm-hmm. and see how I felt about them and how they felt about me. Mm-hmm. And then there were different qualifications they had to have as far as, different horses react different ways to different things. Like in an arena, you have one horse that when they turn all the lights out and turn a spot on him, mm-hmm. he can go absolutely
crazy.
Buggy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then there's another one that can ride in the arena and he's fine. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care what happens. But and then they throw popcorn balls at him. Mm-hmm. The kids will do this. Then on a set, when they click that thing, that says ready, set, mm-hmm. go, action, all that jazz. Mm-hmm. Okay, then that makes a big thing there as far as the horse is concerned, because that scares him. Mm-hmm. And now he could just back off or rear up or anything on this order mm-hmm. and throw you and without your being prepared for it. Mm-hmm. So all these things have to be taken into consideration as far as getting a horse picture-wise, and also one for the road. Mm-hmm. We had one that was a beautiful horse mm-hmm. that was used for front camera, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I would ride into the scene on target, mm-hmm. and he was all groomed and had his hair all combed and his mm-hmm. ears would stand up. Then there was another one that was riding across the prairie. Mm-hmm. And he was a little, oh, God love him, that was Sandy. And he was a little bit shaggy, but man, that horse could run. And he mm-hmm. would ride so smooth. I just adored him. Mm-hmm. And then the other one we had for the arena, which was also the show horse. Mm-hmm. And that, but he didn't mind, you're shooting off of him mm-hmm. and using a gun and things on this order. And then with the lights being out mm-hmm. and the spotlight on him. Mm-hmm. And then hitting on the targets of the targets that we had sitting around the arena. Mm-hmm. I had like 6 of them lined up. And I had to shoot with a pistol and hit these targets and light a stack of matches that were on top of it. Mm-hmm. And so the reflection sometimes from the light, I could see it, it was bothering me. It'd start to shy, but he knew better, so he stayed in there. He was fabulous. We did a show in Houston, the first time I tried him out. And we did a show for a children's hospital. And we went around the arena, and I hit every target. All the matches lit up. I was so thrilled. That night I went out in the arena and didn't hit a single one. I said, whoa!
What did you say to the audience?
I said, I'm sorry. So we went around again. Then I think I got, 4 out of the 6, something like that. So they laughed and they applauded and said, great, thanks for trying again, that sort of thing. But those things happen.
When you were going out on the road like that, though, you had to put a lot of advanced planning in it. I mean, it was like choreographing a show, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. Well, Gene,
because you had to have the initial act written.
Right.
And then you had to have somebody take care of your horse, transport him, and so forth.
Well, now, Gene did most of that, because when I went on the road, it was the majority of the times when I first started on the road, I was going out with Gene. And, of course, he had, the horse vans for Champ and Little Champ. And then there was room to take my horse along at the same time. So we had worked the rodeos together, like from the Houston Fat Stock Show to the Fort Worth Stock Show to the Chicago International Amphitheater to Madison Square Garden. All these different places we played. And then, we played the Little Rock Fat Stock Show, the Arkansas Fat Stock Show. And then I played Pine Bluff by myself. All these things, Gene was, of course, had years of experience. And I learned so much from this man as far as traveling and things on this order. And he had advanced men as far as publicity goes. And then he had people in front of him all the way that would, as far as the ticket sales and everything on this order were concerned. So, well, let's face it, this man knows his business. So it was terrific, that way that he had it all set up. So we, when he asked me to go with him, I said, man, this is really an honor, It's fantastic. What an experience. So I'll never forget those days on the road. Oh, it was fabulous. I mean, it's, we did 72 one-night stands when I first started out with this man. And that was his Gale. That was before Annie.
These were theaters.
Right, yeah, that's right, they were. And, man, I think I lost about 30 pounds. It was like, you do...
How many shows a day would you do?
We'd do 2 shows a day. We get there and do a matinee, and then we'd do the evening show, and then you would leave that night on the bus to go to the next town, or the plane, or whatever transportation was available to get to wherever the next town, depending on how many miles away it was, And then by the time you get
you probably didn't know where you were sometimes.
I didn't. Oh, I got up one day and I said, sure nice to be here in Shreveport. Well, we were in Atlanta. It's been done several times, and I'd get my key and I'd get off on the wrong floor, at the hotel. I thought, gee, that was yesterday. Where am I today? It was terrible. It really and truly was, but it was wonderful. An experience that I will never forget. Just it's wonderful working with this man.
Well, Gene has always been such a professional, and he learned the business so well. And when he started producing, you could always tell the Autry productions, because they stood out on television. They were so well done. He used movie techniques and the movie people. He had a whole team that he brought over from his Columbia productions, and they flowed so well.
It was like a family, Tom. Now, after working with Gene in his features at Columbia, then I did, before they started Annie, they did all of Gene's television shows. Not all of them, but I mean a lot of them. And as you say, the same crew came from Columbia, and then they went to work for Flying A, which was Gene's company. And it was like a big family, because you see the same people every day. And so everybody was doubling in brass. There wasn't anybody asking, well, can I move this lamp or something? Somebody'd say, hey, move that lamp over there. And I would go over and pick it up and move it and put it someplace where they said, that's it, Gail, leave it. So it was a big, happy family. I cried so hard when that was over with. Oh, after working with him at Columbia and then at Flying A. Well, you're going to get me crying now. That's terrible. Oh, it was just an experience. It was wonderful.
And it was preserved on film, and thank goodness we have the film, and that's one of the things that you're involved in today, because you've acquired all 81 of the shows.
Yes, that's true, Tom, and hopefully, we'll be able to put Annie back on the air again. This is what I'd like to do. I have talked to a couple of cable companies, and I understand there's a new one coming out, for westerns. And so I would like to talk to them about it and see if there's some way that we can get Annie back on the air, because I don't think there's anything on the air like her today. And I think the little girls today need the same as the little boys, did before. However, there are not many of the westerns for the little boys today either. I'd like to see...
Unfortunately, that's true. But your show had something for everybody, because you were for the girls, and then you had Lofty Craig, Brad
and
Johnson,
Tag,
and Tag for the kids.
Right.
Now, Brad Johnson is no longer with us, but Jimmy Hawkins is.
Oh, yes.
What is he doing today?
Well, he's a big producer in Hollywood. I mean, he is absolutely fabulous. I'm very proud of him. I see him every now and then, and we talk on the phone quite a bit. And so we've talked about, if we can get Annie back on the air, then we'll go back on the road, things on this sort, which would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'd like for him to be down here with me today, as a matter of fact. But he was in the middle of a show that he was doing, so he said that, maybe another time we'd be able to put it together. So I said, terrific, we'll look forward to it. So it's nice that we keep contact, with these people. I still, with the group at Flying A, I still keep in contact with them, a lot of them, some of the crew members, And well, of course,
There was
Pat...
also an Annie Oakley comic book. I forgot about that.
Yes.
And that had a pretty good run.
Yes, it did, and I'd like to put that back out again, They don't have any comic books for little girls today. So why not put them back into the market and let the girls have some fun again?
The cover shots were so beautifully photographed.
They had some very good photographers, Tom. They really and truly did, and they did a beautiful job.
How long did it take to do those? Did you do them all at once for the entire year with the costume changes, or at different times during the year?
Well, I mean, we would have a setup like we would spend one day, for example, and go out and do several costume changes and different angles and different shots, that ideas that they have on the horse, off the horse, coming out of a building, shooting, things on this order. And then that would be one series of it. Then in another 3 months, they would do another series of shots on this order, that with other costumes and different backgrounds and things like that. So it takes about a year to accumulate, all of those. And then they, pick out their best shots and put them on the comic books or wherever they're going to use them.
And go from there with them.
Right.
It's been fun visiting with you.
Oh, Tom, it's been wonderful visiting with you, and it's so nice to see you. And I do appreciate your coming over.
All right. Gail Davis.